I always thought the house would feel smaller when I returned, the way childhood places tend to shrink with age. But the moment I stepped through the front gate, I felt the opposite. The mansion looked wider, taller, as if the roofline had stretched a little higher while I was gone. The windows seemed longer too, tall frames watching me from the upper floors with an unsettling familiarity. It was strange because nothing about the exterior had changed in any obvious way. The bricks were the same faded beige, the arches above each window still curved with that old Victorian elegance, and the front garden still had my mother's obsessive symmetry. But the place felt aware of me in a way it never had before, like it recognized me or pretended to. I had not been home in 8 years. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when my mother sent increasingly agitated letters demanding I visit. I had always been good at avoiding things I did not understand, and the house topped that list. The air around it always felt heavier, as if the walls were holding their breath when people walked by. But 8 years away had convinced me that memory exaggerates fear, that childhood imaginations turn normal places into monsters. So when my mother finally wrote that she was ill, I packed a bag and returned. Guilt is a strong motivator. The front door was already open, which immediately irritated me. My mother hated unlocked doors. She used to double-check them every night, her fingers tapping the metal with the same anxious rhythm. Seeing it ajar made me feel like I had already stepped into something wrong. The hinges creaked faintly as I pushed it wider. I remembered that creak. I remembered the smell of the foyer too, old wood polish, and the faintest hint of lavender from the rug she refused to replace. But as soon as I stepped inside, something was off. The air felt colder than it should have been. Not the kind of cold caused by weather, but the kind that comes from absence. A hollow, empty cold. As if no one had breathed in the house for days. Yet I could hear movement deeper inside, footsteps, soft voices, the rustle of fabric. The atmosphere didn't match the noises. That was the first thing that made my stomach tighten. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed strangely along the walls, spreading too far before fading. The acoustics had shifted. That terrified me, in a very quiet way, the way small wrongnesses do before your brain finds a label for them. Then a familiar voice answered. "Is that you?" My father stepped out from the hallway, dressed exactly the way I remembered him. Same deep brown sweater, same neat hair, same expression that always carried a mix of exhaustion and mild disappointment. He looked almost untouched by time, but not in a comforting way. More like a wax museum figure built to resemble him as precisely as possible. He stopped a few feet away and stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Surprise, yes, but also something sharper. Calculation. "You came," he said. The tone was wrong. Not relieved, not welcoming, just acknowledging. "I got the letter," I said. "Where's Mom? Is she all right?" Before he could answer, another voice approached from behind him. My mother appeared from the hallway, walking briskly, holding a dish towel like she had been in the kitchen. She looked the same age too same, the same hairstyle. The same exact clothing choices I remembered. Even her perfume smelled identical. But she didn't smile when she saw me. "Oh," she said softly, "it's you." She said it like she had expected someone else, and then the worst part arrived. From behind her, stepping into the hallway's light, came a man who looked exactly like me. Same height, same build, same haircut, same quiet posture. He even wore the same style of jacket I used to wear on cold evenings, but he wasn't surprised. He just looked at me with an expression that mirrored mine almost perfectly, as if he was studying a reflection he had seen countless times. My parents didn't react with shock. They didn't scream or panic or explain. They simply adjusted themselves around him, the way people do around someone whose presence is ordinary and expected. I felt my skin crawl. "Who is that?" I asked. My father didn't answer. He turned to the other version of me and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, a gesture he hadn't given me since I was a boy. "Why don't you go upstairs for now?" he said quietly. "Your brother just arrived." The double nodded. His eyes lingered on me for a moment, then he walked up the stairs. His footsteps were too light, too consistent, too measured, as if he were walking with practiced precision. When he disappeared around the corner, my mother finally spoke again. "Let's not have a scene," she murmured. Come inside, we've all had a long morning." I didn't move. The coldness in the house deepened, as if the walls exhaled a chilly breath. "Who was that?" I repeated, this time with anger edging into my voice. My father's expression remained disturbingly calm. "Your replacement," he said simply. The words were so casual, so free of emotion, that for a moment I thought I had misheard. My replacement. Like it was a job, a position, something I was expected to relinquish. "What does that mean?" I whispered. My mother gestured toward the living room. "We shouldn't talk here. Come sit." I followed them despite every instinct screaming to run, because fear rarely feels like fear at first. It feels like curiosity strangled by confusion. I sat across from them on the old sofa. They sat together, hands folded, as if preparing for a formal conversation. My father began, "You left. You disappeared for 8 years. We needed someone here." "You needed someone?" I murmured. "So, you found someone who looks like me?" My mother shook her head slowly. "We didn't find him." My breath caught. "Then where did he come from?" She exhaled, lowering her gaze. "He came from the silence room." The name hit me like a memory I had forgotten I had, an old piece of childhood fear that fluttered awake inside my mind. The silence room. The room we were never allowed to enter. The one with no lock, no window, no explanation. The one my parents treated with reverence and terror. The one room in the house that always felt colder than the rest. The one room that seemed to swallow sound. I had assumed they used it for storage, or for meditation, or for something bizarrely mundane that bored adults kept secret. But hearing its name in this new context made my blood run cold. "I don't understand," I said quietly. "You don't have to," my father replied. "You just need to know he's here now, and things cannot go back to the way they were." I stared at them, startled by the certainty in their voices. "You're telling me that thing up there came out of a room?" My mother flinched. "Don't call him that. He's your copy. He's the version of you that stayed. He's the one this house knows." The phrasing unsettled me deeply. That the house knew him, as if the building itself had a preference, a memory. My father continued, "You left us. He didn't." "But he isn't me," I said sharply. "He's an imitation. He's something you created." "We didn't create him," my mother whispered. "The silence room did." I felt my pulse quicken. "That doesn't make sense." "You think we understand it?" my father asked. "It existed long before any of us. Our family has always lived in this house, and the house has always had that room. The rule is simple. You don't open the door unless you're prepared for what steps out." I stared at them in horror. "And you opened it for him?" They exchanged a look. "A guilty one," my mother said. "We opened it when you left. We hoped something else might appear instead, something useful. But the room gave us another you," my father added. "Something better." The certainty in his voice stabbed me in a way no horror ever could. Something better. My own parents telling me that the thing I had seen, that quiet replica on the stairs, was a better version of me. It took me several seconds to speak again. "I'm staying," I said finally, "and I want to see the silence room." They reacted immediately. "No," my father said. "Absolutely not," my mother whispered, her hands trembling. "Why?" I asked. "Because the house pays attention when the door opens," she said. "It notices who enters. It notices who leaves. And it can only have one of you at a time." The words settled into the air like a sentence passed down by a judge. A cold realization struck me, one that made my throat tighten. My father leaned forward. "You don't understand. The room doesn't make copies for replacement. It makes copies for elimination." My voice cracked. "Elimination? The house chooses one to keep," he said, "and one to forget." And before I could say another word, something upstairs began walking with my footsteps. The footsteps overhead didn't sound like someone pacing. They sounded like someone learning. Each step landed with the same rhythm I knew so well, the same pressure, the same subtle scuff I'd had since I broke my ankle at 15. The same uneven weight. It was my walk, copied perfectly, but the tempo was slightly off, like a musician replaying a melody they'd only heard once. My mother's face went pale when she heard it. My father's jaw tightened with something like dread or resignation. They exchanged a silent look. The same look people give each other during a fire drill when they know the instructions aren't enough to save them. "You should not have come back," my mother whispered. The house already adjusted. My mind kept circling that word. Adjusted. As if the building were a living thing rearranging itself around a preferred occupant. I stood from the sofa. "I want to see him." "No," my father snapped. It was the first time he'd raised his voice since I arrived. "Stay away from him. If he mirrors you too closely, the house might solidify its choice." "What does that even mean?" "You don't understand how thin the line is between being the original and being the leftover," he said. The leftover. The word hit like a punch. I started toward the staircase anyway. I didn't care about their warnings. I didn't care about their fear. The sound of my own footsteps above me was unbearable. I needed to see him again, needed to understand what this thing was. As I reached the bottom step, the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was thicker than usual, as if the air itself held its breath. I climbed slowly, listening for any hint of movement. At the top of the stairs, I hesitated. My old bedroom was at the end of the hallway. I could feel something waiting behind the door, and then I heard it. Breathing. Not heavy breathing, not panicked, soft, controlled, steady. My breathing, my exact breathing pattern, even the quiet whistle in my exhale, I'd always hated and could never fix. The door cracked open from the inside. I froze. He stepped out. Seeing him in bright hallway light was worse than the dim glimpse earlier. His face was mine, not almost mine, not similar. It was perfect. Even the small scar on my chin from falling off a bike when I was 9 was in the exact same place. His movements were smooth, too smooth, like someone who had practiced being human rather than someone who simply was. "What do you want?" he asked. Hearing my own voice coming from his mouth made me physically recoil. He didn't sound confused or threatened, just annoyed, like I'd interrupted something. "I want answers," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You won't get them," he replied. "Not from them." "Then from who?" His expression shifted into something dangerously close to amusement. "From the room." "I'm going in," I said. "Then you'll be erased," he replied calmly. He stepped closer until we were nearly face to face. I had never realized how unnerving my own eyes could look when stripped of warmth. The room does not produce two originals. It produces one original and one echo, and the echo fades. "You're the echo," I said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I have lived here for years. I know every sound this house makes, every pipe, every floorboard, every breath behind every door. The house recognizes me. It remembers me. I grew up here," I shot back. "It knows me better." He leaned in until his forehead almost touched mine. "Then why can't you hear it?" I blinked. "Hear what?" "The pulse." I didn't hear anything, just silence, thick and unnatural. He stepped back. "Exactly." He turned and walked toward the far end of the hallway, deeper into the house, moving with confidence I had never had. My body tensed with anger. I moved to follow him, but my father's voice rose sharply from below. "Stop." I looked down the stairs. My father stood there with a look I had never seen on him before. Not fear, not disappointment, something worse, admiration, for the other me, not for me. "Come downstairs," he said. "Now." I hesitated, the double pausing just long enough to glance back at me. He didn't need to speak. His expression said everything. "The house wants me here, not you." I felt something inside me crack. I marched down the stairs. "I'm going to that room," my mother gasped. My father went rigid. "No one opens that door," he said. "Not unless it's necessary." "What's so necessary about him?" I demanded. "What made you open it before?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We were desperate." "Desperate for what?" "For someone the house would accept," she whispered. That sentence hung in the air, strange and heavy. "The house doesn't accept people," I said. "It's just a building." My father shook his head slowly. "You don't remember, do you?" "Remember what?" He walked past me, went into the dining room, and pulled out an old wooden box from a cabinet. I had never seen it before. It was carved with patterns I didn't recognize, sharp angles and looping shapes that made my skin prickle to look at. He set it on the table and opened it. Inside were dozens of small objects, a pair of cracked glasses, a child's shoe, a silver ring, pieces of fabric, a broken watch. They looked like personal belongings, remnants of people. These were the ones the house didn't keep, my father said quietly. Every generation, the room takes one child from this family, one that survives, one that stays. And the others? I asked. He closed the box with a soft thud. They fade. My double isn't real, I snapped. He's not the one who should stay. My father looked at me with an expression that cut deeper than any threat. You don't decide that. The house does. My pulse hammered. And what does the silence room do exactly? My mother stepped closer, her voice trembling. When the door opens, the room copies someone in the house. It chooses the one it believes belongs, the one who fits, the one the house recognizes. And if it already has one copy, then the original becomes unnecessary, she whispered. The cold air swelled around me, as if the house were breathing in my direction. I took a step back. You think the room will erase me? They didn't answer. In the silence that followed, a soft sound drifted down from the hallway upstairs. A whisper, not words, just a quiet exhale of sound. My own voice, calling my name. My blood froze. My double was not the only thing upstairs. Something else was awake. Something that carried my voice without being me. And it was standing at the door of the silence room. The whisper slid down the staircase like a cold breeze. A faint call shaped exactly in my tone. Not similar, not close, perfect. Every syllable, every breath, every subtle imperfection in my voice reproduced with horrifying accuracy. It wasn't a simple echo. It wasn't imitation. It was deliberate. My parents' faces drained of color. My mother clutched my father's arm the way drowning people grip anything that floats. He didn't pull away. His eyes were locked on the staircase, terrified but resigned, like he had always known this moment would come. It's too early, my mother whispered. The room isn't supposed to open unless the house makes its choice, my father finished quietly. I swallowed hard. What choice? You're back, he said, voice low. It has to settle the conflict. What conflict? He turned to me slowly, painfully. Two versions of the same person can't exist in the house at once. Not for long. The room knows that. It always has. My pulse thudded in my ears. So it's calling me? It's testing you, my mother said. The room only calls the one it intends to keep. The whisper drifted again, softer, closer. My name, spoken gently, persuasively. A voice I had heard all my life, a voice I trusted, my own voice. Then I heard it again, this time clearer, sharper. Come here. The words crawled under my skin. My father grabbed my arm. You're not going up there. I pulled away. Then who is? The one it chose, he said. And that isn't you. Stop saying that, I snapped. He didn't flinch. You were gone for years. The house doesn't know you anymore. When you left, you broke something. The rune filled the gap. I stared at him, feeling a slow, horrible warmth spreading through my chest. The kind of warmth that comes before panic, before your body realizes it is in danger. It made him, I said. Yes. And now it wants me gone. My mother closed her eyes. It isn't that simple. No, my father said. It is exactly that simple. The whisper grew louder. My name again, spoken with calm patience, as if whoever was calling me knew I would eventually obey, as if they had all the time in the world. I turned toward the staircase. My mother stepped between me and the steps. Don't go. You can't win this. The room doesn't choose based on who you are. It chooses based on who the house remembers. That thing is not me, I said through clenched teeth. That thing stayed, she whispered. I froze, and something inside me cracked. Before I could answer, soft footsteps sounded from above. Not my double steps, too light, too weightless, almost like someone walking on the edge of sound, barely touching the floor. Then the bedroom doors along the hallway began closing, one by one, slow, steady thuds echoing down the stairs. My father stiffened. It's preparing. Preparing for what? I asked. The arrival, he said. The final door closed, and the whispering stopped. Then a low, hollow click echoed through the house like a latch unlocking. My mother gasped. My father's eyes widened in dread. The silence room door had opened on its own. I felt the shift in the air, a A pressure change so subtle I might have missed it if I hadn't grown up here. The temperature dropped sharply, enough to make goosebumps rise along my arms. The house felt suddenly watchful, like it was holding its breath. My father backed away from the stairs. It opened. It never opens by itself. My stomach twisted. Why now? You're both here, he said. It has to decide which of you belongs. My mother grabbed my wrist. We have to leave the house, now. I ripped my hand free. No, I'm not running from this. I want to see it. You don't understand, she cried. If you step into that hallway, you're stepping into its judgment. Good, I thought. Let it judge. I began walking toward the stairs. My parents didn't follow. They just stared with hollow, defeated expressions as I placed my foot on the first step. Halfway up, I heard someone descending. I froze. The figure came into view slowly, one step at a time. My breath caught as I recognized the shape. It wasn't my double. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't my father. It was me. But not the double I had already met. This one looked older, thinner, as if something had drained years out of him. His hair was slightly longer, his clothes outdated, his skin pale and pulled tight over his face, his eyes hollow, sunken. His lips cracked into a trembling smile. You came back, he whispered. My legs almost buckled. Who are you? He held onto the railing, breath shaking. The one you forgot. What does that mean? My parents didn't answer. They didn't move. They didn't even breathe loudly. The older version of me took another slow step down until we stood at eye level. You left before, he said, but not 8 years ago. Longer, much longer. You left me, in there. His trembling hand lifted and pointed behind him toward the dark hallway, toward the silence room. You left me, he whispered, and I waited. I waited so long that the house made another, and then another, and now you're back. Cold crept into my bones. How many copies are there? I asked. He smiled the way people smile when their minds fracture, enough to fill the house twice. My mother whimpered. My father closed his eyes. The older me leaned in until his cracked lips brushed my ear. It only keeps the one that doesn't run. He pulled back. And you ran. Before I could reply, something moved behind him in the hallway. A faint silhouette. Then another, and another. Shapes, figures, walking with my posture, standing with my stance, heads tilted at the same angle, eyes reflecting the same dark emptiness. Copies. So many copies. The silence room wasn't opening. It was emptying because I had returned, and the house wanted all of its versions of me gathered, to choose one and erase the rest. They stepped out of the darkness slowly, one after another, their silhouettes forming a quiet procession. Not rushing, not stalking, just drifting forward in perfect calm, like they had rehearsed the moment of their return 1,000 times while trapped behind that door. The hallway behind the older version of me was filling with versions of myself. Some looked exactly like me now. Some looked younger, almost boyish. Some looked older, gaunt and drained. Some wore clothes I barely remembered owning. Some wore nothing but tattered shirts. Some shivered. Some smiled with a strange, empty politeness. But they all shared one thing. Their eyes. The same shape, the same color, the same quiet calculation. A collective memory staring through dozens of versions of the same face. I felt the weight of something enormous settle over my chest, a pressure that made it hard to inhale. These were not ghosts. They were not illusions. They were not tricks of the mind. They were real, solid, breathing, alive in their own horrifying way. Copies, echoes, leftovers from years I couldn't even remember. Some of them whispered as they stepped forward. Not words, not warnings, just soft sounds of breath, tiny replicas of noises I had made all my life, the exact way I breathed when scared, the small catch in my throat when I was about to speak, the quiet hum I made absent-mindedly as a child. The house had held onto every fragment of me and stored them in that room. And now it was opening the archive. The older me who stood closest reached out with a shaking hand. His nails were cracked, his wrist thin enough to break from a strong touch. You took too long, he said, voice brittle. You wandered away and I stayed. I don't understand, I whispered. "You left us behind," he said. "You left them behind." Another version of me stepped forward, a younger one, maybe 13, wearing a faded shirt with a cartoon I vaguely remembered. He stared at me with wide, glassy eyes. "You forgot the house," the boy whispered. More whispers, more echoes, more versions of me joining the chorus. I backed down one step, instinct forcing me backward, even while my mind scrambled to make sense of any of it. My father grabbed the railing at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at the gathering versions with a look of pure regret. "We didn't know the room was making so many. We only opened it twice, that we admit. But the room opens on its own when the house senses absence." My mother trembled violently. Every time a child in this family ran away, the room made another one. "And when did I run away?" I asked softly. Silence. Both my parents looked down, not at me, at the copies. They knew. My father's voice cracked. "You have run from this house more times than you remember. It resets you. It resets everything you take with you." My stomach twisted. Resets? The older me smiled sadly. "You don't remember the doors closing behind you. You don't remember when you were taken. You don't remember when the room emptied." "I left 8 years ago," I insisted, grasping for anything stable. "You left 8 years ago the last time," he said. "But before that, you left 12 years ago, and before that, 19 years, and before that, you never left at all because the room took you when you were little." I shook my head. "No, memory is not yours," he whispered. "It belongs to the house." My breath stuttered. "You think you lived a life outside. You think you went to school, grew up, traveled, worked. You think you left here voluntarily, but memories bend in this place. They rearrange as easily as furniture." "No," I repeated, barely audible. "When you leave," he said, "you only take the memories the house permits. The rest remains here, in us." A chill slid down my spine, so cold it numbed my skin. My father took a step back. "We tried to stop the room. We tried to keep the door closed, but the house always decides, and it decided long before you were born." "Decided what?" I asked, barely holding my voice steady. "That this family must always have someone inside it who fits," he answered. "Someone who belongs perfectly. Someone it can trust." The older me turned toward the copies behind him. Their heads lifted as one. Their chests rose at the same time. Their hands loosened and tightened in the same rhythm. "We all thought we were the chosen one," he whispered. I swallowed hard. "And now what?" He smiled with a tenderness that broke my heart more than fear. "Now the house looks at all of us, and it will decide again." "What does it decide? Which version of you stays? And the others?" He stepped aside, revealing the hallway behind him fully. Every door leading to the silence room was open now, all the way down. Not physically open, metaphorically open, an invitation, a tunnel of quiet, waiting darkness. "The others go back," he said, "and when they go back, they don't come out again." My throat tightened painfully. "And me?" His eyes softened with pity. "If you go in, you become memory. If you run, you become nothing." I stared into the hallway. The door to the silence room was barely visible from this distance, but a faint glow pulsed beneath it. Not light, more like breath, a pulse in the wood. The older me leaned closer. "You asked why you never heard the house pulse?" "Yes," I whispered. He pointed behind him. "Because you only hear it if the house is choosing you." The hallway went silent. Every copy stopped breathing. Every head turned toward me. And I heard it. A soft, slow thud. A rhythmic hum inside the walls, a steady pulse traveling through the floorboards, the heartbeat of the house. Choosing. The pulse vibrated through the walls in a slow, deliberate rhythm, a deep thud that seemed to echo from the very bones of the house. It was not loud, it was not frantic, it was controlled and steady, like a creature waking from sleep and taking its time to look around. My parents froze, the copies froze. Even the older version of me went still, his eyes widening with a kind of sad recognition. "You hear it?" he whispered. I wished I could deny it. I wished I could pretend it was nerves, or my own heartbeat, or a trick of acoustics. But the pulse continued, a steady, slow beat that resonated under my feet. My ribs seemed to thrum with each vibration. The older me took one step down the stairs toward me. His voice softened. It has noticed you." The younger copies watched me with unblinking focus. They were waiting, expectant, reverent, as if they already knew the outcome. My father whispered without taking his eyes off me, "This is what we feared. The moment it recognizes one of you, the judgment begins." "What does that mean?" I asked. My mother's voice cracked. "It means the house is choosing its version of you, the one it will keep, the one it will protect, the one it will allow to continue." "And the others?" I whispered. My father closed his eyes. "The others become mistakes. The room reclaims mistakes." The pulse grew slightly louder. Thud, thud, thud. Growing more intentional. I stepped back from the staircase. The copies shifted slightly as if gauging my movement. They were not aggressive. They were not moving toward me. They simply adjusted, observing me with cold precision. Like they were studying how I reacted to the pulse. Like they were learning. The older me spoke quietly. "You need to listen carefully. Do you hear it in your head yet, or only in the walls?" "My head," I repeated. He nodded. "When the house is sure, the sound moves inward. It will not be around you anymore. It will be inside you." My stomach tightened. "And then what happens?" "Then the room opens fully," he whispered. "And the one it has chosen steps inside." "And the one it has not chosen?" I asked. He looked down the stairs at my parents. "They fade, not quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes in pieces." I felt nauseous. This is insane. It is not insane. It is older than insane. It is a system, a very old one, and we have all been part of it whether we wanted to be or not. I turned sharply to my parents. "You let this happen." My mother wiped a tear with shaking fingers. "We tried to stop it. Every generation tried. Every single one failed." My father whispered, "The house always wins." The copies behind the older me began shifting again, moving aside, parting like a curtain being drawn open. At the far end of the hallway, the door to the silence room began to glow faintly. Soft golden light seeped from underneath it, pulsing in sync with the beat. Thud. Glow. Thud. Glow. I heard a soft sound from my own mouth, a tiny hitch in my breath, the sound I make when I try to hold back fear. The boy version of me repeated the sound perfectly. Then one of the middle-aged versions did. Then two others. They were reflecting my fear back at me. The older one lifted his hand and pointed behind him to the glowing door. "You are hearing the house. That means it wants you. But that is not the same as choosing you." "How do I know which it is?" I asked. He stepped closer. "You wait." I clenched my jaw. "I am not waiting to be judged by a house." "You always have," he whispered, "even when you left. The house does not stop judging simply because its occupant walks away." My father spoke carefully. "If you walk toward the room, the house may interpret it as consent." "And if I walk away?" His eyes dimmed. "Then it may interpret that as rejection. So I lose either way." My mother broke. "You lose because you came back." The pulse changed. Once slow and steady, it shifted into something different. It was still rhythmic, but sharper now, more defined, like a heart speeding up in interest. All the copies lifted their heads in perfect unison. The older me whispered, "It has decided to look closer." "What does that mean?" I asked. He lifted a hand and placed it gently on my chest, just above my heart. "You will feel a pull. A small one at first. The house is comparing us, listening to us, measuring us. I do not feel anything." "You will," he said softly. A moment later I felt it. A tug beneath my ribs, not painful, not strong, just a pulling sensation, subtle and strange. My lungs felt slightly heavier. My breath caught for a moment. The older me placed his hands at his sides. His expression trembled. "There it is." Another version whispered, "It is listening to his breathing." Another whispered, "It is testing his presence." The boy version spoke softly, "It wants to feel him." I stumbled back another step. My legs felt weak. My father whispered, "Do not panic." My voice cracked, "Do not panic." "The house is pulling at me," my mother said through clenched teeth. "It is drawing your living pattern. If it recognizes your pattern as familiar, it will choose you. And if it does not?" She could not say it. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing quietly. The older me moved down another stair until we were almost face to face. "It is time to understand something important." "What?" I said shakily. "You are not the first to think you were the original." My chest tightened painfully. "I do not believe that. Those memories are mine. My childhood is mine. My life is mine." "Is it?" he asked quietly. "Or did the house give those memories to all of us?" The pulse quickened. My heart raced in response. The house seemed to notice. Thud, 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 thud. Faster. Closer. Inside my ribs now. Then everything stopped. The pulse went silent. The hallway froze. Every copy tilted its head at the exact same angle. The older version smiled sadly. "It is choosing," I whispered. "Which one?" He looked at me with eyes that held pity and truth in equal measure. "It is not choosing who stays, it is choosing who enters the room." The silence room door swung open at the far end of the hall with a gentle click. A bright, warm light spilled out, soft and inviting, almost peaceful. Every version of me turned toward it slowly. Then, all at once, every copy looked directly at me. My heart nearly stopped. The older version spoke in a trembling voice filled with awe and terror. "It wants you inside. It opened for you." I stepped back until my legs hit the wall. "No," I whispered. The older one nodded slowly. "Yes, the room is calling you. And if you refuse, the house will take you anyway." Behind him, the glowing doorway widened. The house had made its choice. And it wanted me.